Bauer Supreme Ultrasonic. Why are we still talking about it? Isn't this line a little older? Well, today I'm going to tell you why I still use it and why a whole bunch of NHL goalies still use it as well. Check it out. What's going on, goalies? My name is Dudo and I am the Goalie Gear Snob, and today I'm going to talk to you about the Bauer Supreme Ultrasonic line. I know what you're thinking. Generally, I like to review newer gear, some cooler gear, some custom gear, but what I'm going to talk about today is an all-white pair of Bauer Ultrasonics that I've been using off and on for the better part of 2 years. I know 2 years doesn't seem like, that's a long time or a short time for someone to use a set of gear, but for me, with how much gear I use, for me to hold on to a set for that long must mean it's special. Let's talk about why I still use it and why some other NHL goalies are using it as well. So starting off with the leg pads here, I want to point out this cool feature across the back half of the pad. So on the back of the leg channel right here, this is the cool little thing that's going to tell you that it's a Bauer Ultrasonic pad. So in the back of the leg channel here, there's this really cool soft material with a little curved composite hit, and basically you're going to see that across the entire ultrasonic line. That's how you can identify what pro is wearing an ultrasonic pad. But for me, this is how I can tell that's an ultrasonic pad. So I want to point that out first because that's something important that I'm going to talk about through the rest of this video. However, I'm going to spin across to the front half of the pad here. This is an all-white pair of ultrasonic pads in size medium. Medium is a little bit larger for me. I know that in years past I would have worn smalls in Bauer's. However, in the Hyperlites I wore a medium, and in some other Supreme models I've actually worn a small. And I've always felt like I was in between Bauer sizing, even dating back to the 1/100 and the RX10s. I'd go between a 33 and a 34 all the time. So for me to get into a medium size here, I'm not totally shocked that I'm wearing something a little bit larger than I would prefer, but I'll tell you about why the knee block stabilizes everything for me so I don't have any issues when I'm dropping down in the butterfly. But before I talk about the rest of the leg channel, love that all white look. I know I keep talking about why a lot of people like the ultrasonic line, specifically NHL goaltenders, but for me and why I really like the Supreme Ultrasonic pad is because of this one-piece knee design here. The Stabila Slide knee, which is actually more of a bookend that actually integrates to the edge of the pad and is jointed together with a piece that runs across the face here. The reason why I really like this is because when I go to hold the pad by the knee block itself, and you can see here, there is no tilt, there is nothing lost, there's almost no bending that is happening here. I'm like really pressing into this right now, and I'm getting maybe a degree or two of movement. And the same thing when I press it across the inside edge here. And the reason why this is so important and so integral as to why I like the ultrasonic line a lot is because this creates an insane amount of support when you're down in the butterfly. So there's not just support across the knee when you're sealing the ice and when you're sliding and when you're moving around, but you get a lot of comfort in the knee knowing that this is all one piece. There's no compression, there's no negative energy loss. It's an extremely comfortable design. And what that means for other goalies as well that might even be wearing an intermediate pad, or some younger goalies that are starting to grow up, this one-piece knee design is now stock on almost every line of Bauer pads that are out right now. Actually, it is going to be stock on all the Bauer pads that are out there right now, including the new GSX for 2023, which is actually going to be the same Stabila Flex knee block from the Vapor 3X pad. But talking about the ultrasonic here with this Stabila Slide, this is the stiffer version of the one-piece knee blocks. You can see I'm really trying to crank on this and pull this out of the way. But for me, I've really enjoyed this knee block because when I drop down to the ice, I am super locked in. I get a good slide, a good seal, and I feel very comfortable that there's no loss or tilt loss in the pad when I'm dropping down into the butterfly. But let's talk about strapping here in a second. But Let's just enjoy that knee block. So when it comes to strapping the back of the pad, I've talked heavily about the importance of a professor strap, which is this top internal calf strap right here. So when I wear these pads, I only wear 3 actual straps across the back and some toe ties. The toe ties, you can see, I actually have kind of run up across the side here just to kind of keep things nice and tidy. But for the straps, I run this strap from the knee block down to the calf, which, as you can see, it coming from right here down to the calf. I run this external strap from the outside of the calf across the middle right here. And I wear this top internal calf strap. I know a lot of goalies that wear this leg pad actually prefer using that internal Y strap, but I do not. I actually removed that internal Y strap. You can see the open slots that are right here. I just found that it was redundant and I got all the support I needed from this top internal calf strap right here. And also, when I keep the pads hanging around behind me on the wall right here, I just keep the straps kind of open, so when I'm transporting them, there's no open Velcro. It's easier for me to put on, so that's where you're going to see them looking like that here today. But pretty basic strapping, pretty simple here. This top internal calf strap was actually custom made for me by Mike Bruins. He put this together for me just because at the time I couldn't find any more of these ultrasonic straps, and I had some that were wearing out. So he made me a pair that were all black. Generally, I wear them with black socks anyway, so you don't really even see this strap here. But that's something I just didn't want to call out and thank him for putting together for me here. Other small modification I did is whenever I attach this internal strap, I run a stitch through it just to kind of hold it together because I found that the Velcro used to pull off. So I just wanted to hold things down a little bit more. But that's the back half of the ultrasonic leg pad. I know I said this earlier that I've been using this set off and on for about 2 years now, which doesn't seem like a long time or a long stretch of time. But for me, with how often I've gone through gear, finding a set of pads I really like and want to stick with is huge. Much like the Axis 2s I found recently, this used to be the go-to before the Axis 2. I really love the ultrasonic pad because I get a lot of great rebounds. They really boom away from the pad, they kick out far. I've gotten a great seal on these pads. Moving in and out of RVH has been seamless with this boot. And for me, the durability has been there. I've almost had no wear across this inside edge right here. I have a little bit of fraying across the inside bindings, which is, nothing major to report. A little bit of fraying, nothing too crazy. But that's, to me, what I expect on a pad that's been used for that long. I know that this pad here, the only really big major modification other than kind of messing with the color of the internal straps when I swap out the black one for the silver one is going to be that I removed the logos across this pad. All I did was just take a little bit of a heat gun or a lighter and just started pulling off the logos with pliers. And I've removed the one down here on the outside edge as well. And I just threw in some BHL logos for the guys over here. But those are the only really big major mods I've done to these pads, and I've really enjoyed how they felt. And the reason why I still like using these and like wearing them is because there are a lot of pro goalies that do wear them. Remember I talked about earlier about this little logo across the inside of the leg channel? Well, now I'm going to talk to you about some NHL goalies that I found that are still wearing the Supreme Ultrasonic as recently as halfway through 2023. So let's talk about them. So this little piece right here, this is really important when determining what an actual pad is or what an actual Bauer pad is. So I love what Bauer does right now, being able to digiprint any graphic or really any iteration of a graphic that they want onto a set of leg pads. I know a lot of people think that they just use it for custom, but they do have the version where you can kind of do your pro custom recipe where you get a different vapor graphic onto a Supreme pad or vice versa. But they're actually doing that for some of the pro goalies right now. They're actually wearing ultrasonic leg pads with a mock or a Hyperlite2 graphic or anything else. So I'm going to read off some names real quick of goalies that I have confirmed just by looking at Getty images and what they wore over the last season. I'm going to talk about the goalies that are still wearing ultrasonic pads now. So I'm going to start off first with Jake Ottinger, Linus Ullmark, Joseph Wall, Eric Shalgren, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, Elvis Merzlikins, James Reimer, and Matt Murray from Dallas. Those are all the goalies that I could find that ended up wearing this ultrasonic leg pad that had that hit across the back. Some interesting goalies to note that switched over to mock around the off season that were historically in ultrasonic pads were Spencer Knight, Vitek Vanacek, Andrei Vasilevsky, and Dan Vladar. So those are the goalies that ended up wearing mock, which is an actual mock leg pad. But that's just a little bit of history about some of those goalies that were wearing that pad and finished up wearing it just a few months or so ago. But why do people like it? What's so cool about it? Well, I'm going to give you my thoughts now. So remember when I was talking about this internal one-piece knee block that they have right here? So on this knee block right here, this was super integral for pad rotation, pad seal, and all those cool features that goalies love when in the butterfly position. But on the mock pad, when they introduced this concept down to the calf, I don't think a lot of people liked it at first. That's just my guess. But knowing on the mock pads that they have the same knee area, or the same one-piece knee that's introduced to the calf, which is essentially called a calf bracket, from my understanding, there's two of them in here that created an insane amount of support. And what I can only assume is that goalies found it was too much support, and they actually wanted something that was a little bit softer to what they're used to using. There is a huge thing that happens in pro stock gear and pro return gear, that what you see on the ice is not actually what the core or what the actual breakdown or build of the gear is. You'd be surprised how many people are still wearing 195 pants. I'm talking players specifically, about how many players are still using 195 blades, Max Domi, and what a lot of other people really like in their sticks. Even the 2N Pro XL is one of the most popular sticks you're going to see amongst NHL players right now. Might be wrapped as a Hyperlite or a Sync, but that's what a lot of guys are wearing right now. The same thing happens with goalie gear. You can tell by that little piece on the inside of the leg channel. But that's just my guess as to why I think a lot of goalies really like this ultrasonic pad and they weren't really liking the mock. I know that the mock was stiffer first, or right out of the box. Of course, NHL goalies can customize it to how they like, but it sounds like they're really successful in the ultrasonic, and if it's not broke, don't fix it. So switching gears a little bit, going from a hard stop talking about the pads, going right to the blocker here. This is a stock ultrasonic blocker. And how you can tell it's an ultrasonic blocker is because of this little hit right here, this little triangle that says that it's curved composite. This is something that's very specific to the ultrasonic line. And there's also a very special line material across the inside of the cuff here, which is actually the same material that was on the back of the leg pads. Very plush, very soft material, very comfortable to wear, but that's how you can denote that this is an ultrasonic blocker. I know that I pulled all the logos off, pointing to the wrong side. I know that I pulled all the logos off here as well, but there was a small heat transfer one on the inside over here. But in looking at this, of course, once you get super close to it, you can see that there is an ultrasonic graphic. You can see the ultrasonic ribbing that kind of comes through when they print the material in and kind of the shading they put in. But some other hits, of course, other than like the imprinted logos that actually do say ultrasonic right here, you're going to see this lacing pattern that runs across the inside of the sidewall right here. And like I said, you're going to see that back half little tiny triangle that is up here. But in terms of the performance of this blocker, I think, in my opinion, this should be one of the industry standards. If people are trying to clone gear or copy gear, I think this is what you should be going after. The balance of this blocker on the hand is slightly above kind of a neutral position. So it kind of extends the blocker that goes below the fingers a little bit more. So you can kind of reach pucks down low. I think that it has a proper amount of board curve towards the top half. It's nothing too drastic. It's very subtle. And also the internal board they put in here with curved composite and the other materials like send pucks so far away, it's ridiculous. I've been using this blocker for just over 2 years now. And with my assumption, it's just over 3 years old. And it still sends rebounds out extremely hard, extremely far away, and I've absolutely loved this blocker. And I did recently have it refurbished. So talking about what was refurbished on this blocker is actually going to be the bindings. I know it kind of sounds silly, but recently, after I had the glove modified by Dennis at FactoryMAD, I thought it would be a great idea to take these sweat-soaked gloves and put them into the bathtub and let the water kind of rinse through there and try to put some cleaning solvents on there to try to break down some of the dirt and sweat and get it out of the blocker. What I didn't realize was that the white bindings that were across the blocker, and especially the glove, those turned terribly sweat-stained yellow, and I, for the life of me, cannot get that sweat to rinse out. It was almost a permanent stain. So I had these sent over to Dennis at FactoryMAD, who did that refurbishing for me. So on the blocker itself, he redid the white bindings that run across the side here, across the fingertips, and he even redid the lacing for me as well. There are some other like stitch areas that you can see like still have the sweat stuck in there, especially this Velcro right here that is kind of yellowed. That's a small little thing. I didn't really notice that as much. It was really just the rest of it that was so stained and looked terrible. But when getting everything redone and getting the entire palm rinsed out, the palm is still very supple. There's almost no wear on it. I have almost no wear marks across this. This is a perfect fit after using it off and on for about 2 years now. I find that the fit is great. Specifically, the Ultrasonic palm has these stretch gussets across the back of the fingers, so the whole palm kind of stretches, and all the fingers are kind of individually attached through these little pieces of elastic up here. And I just think it is super comfortable to wear. It stretches to the hand. Kind of feels like in between a 13 or 14-inch Supreme player glove, if you've tried one of those on before. So it has that really tight feel to the hand, very mobile, covers very well. Like I said, it just sends pucks up to the glass, even to the netting. I absolutely love it. But I want to talk about some of the glove refurbishments that I had here now. So in terms of modifying gear, I've already done a video on this before, and you've already seen this glove as I've talked about the modifications that were done by Dennis over at FactoryMAD. However, something I did want to point out is that since that video, this glove has been entirely refurbished again. So earlier, when I was talking about with the blocker, that I thought it'd be a great idea to put the gloves in the bathtub and try to get all the sweat out of them. It stained the glove terribly. Not only did the sweat kind of stain the gloves, but it made all the laces like really hard and stiff. It made the whole thing just feel really slippery, slimy, kind of fishy. So I had this sent back to Dennis and he fixed it up for me. The other key things that he did for me to make the glove even better was he actually added in a little bit of a wear area across the outside edge of the fingers here. So this is actually a brand new piece of Gen Pro that runs across. And he did the same thing across the backhand for me over here. So when I first posted that kind of before and after video, I didn't really show a lot of the backhand, but that's just something I did want to call out there. But in terms of the regular ultrasonic glove, this is going to be considered a 75-degree break, very close to the CCM 600 break that you're going to see out there. I've also heard a few people say it feels a lot like a Vaughn SLR glove. I have not personally confirmed that. I think the SLR glove feels a little bit more lateral on the hand, like the pocket is more kind of over here instead of up here. But that's just what some people have told me, but I have not personally seen that. But in terms of the actual glove break here, again, it is modified, so it's going to be closing super easy, but this is considered a 75-degree break. I found that stock that this glove has an insane amount of palm protection to it. In the times I've used it, I have not felt a stinger across the hands here. I have not had any issues with the cuff breaking or any issues there. I've had a lot of people talk about this glove positively. So this glove I did not necessarily get when I got the pads and the blocker. This was actually purchased at a different time, kind of through a friend, a little bit of a trade parlay, the Thanks Scoops. But I know that he used this heavily for about 2 straight years, so it matches the same amount of wear that I would have had on the pads and blocker. Of course, I pulled the logo off right here, try to keep it nice and clean. I love that all white look. I think that the T looks awesome right here. Pocket looks great. And then of course the other modification I did is I removed this area right here where the wrist kind of strap would be, or wrist cuff if you will. So I removed that just so I can get the perfect amount of wrist mobility and movement that I like in gloves. And so those are the really big modifications that I've done on this. So I just want to give a huge shout out to Dennis for making all these bindings look fresh and white again, and I'm really happy with how it came out. So thanks, man. Final piece I want to talk about here is this cute little check mark that you're going to see across the back of the cuff here. The same exact check mark that you're going to see across the back of the blocker, and some of the internal lining of the glove is very similar to what you're going to see on the back of the blocker or the inside of the leg pads. And the reason why I wanted to call that out is because this is another thing that comes stock on the Ultrasonic glove. So when you're seeing a lot of pro guys out there that look like they're wearing a mock or a Hyperlite or something else, or like Jake Ottinger, who has been in a full Ultrasonic set since he debuted in the NHL about 3 years ago, this is something that you look for across the back that denotes and tells you what the stock build of the glove or blocker or pads really is. So it's really important to look at the back of Bauer gear to kind of know specifically what it is and why. So hopefully that helps you learn a little bit more about it. So I just want to talk a little bit about when I've used this set, and I'm going to try to see if I can splice together some on-ice footage of me using it here. So specifically, I've worn this set off and on for about 2 years. I know I've said that quite a bit. This glove is a little bit newer, but I did wear the pads and blocker when I played for the New York Rangers alumni against the Dallas Stars alumni. I did wrap the pads to kind of mimic a sock graphic with some New York Rangers hits to try to match a little bit more. I did kind of hide the Bauer logos there, but that's just something that I wanted to do to try to match the Rangers a little bit more without having the Bauer logos. I just thought it wouldn't be that cool of me or that snobby of me just to show up to pretty much playing with NHL players with an all-white base. I tried to match a little bit more, so I did get to wear it then. I have used this set with the Dallas Stars, specifically in practicing with them last summer. I wore it for all 5 times I skated with them and absolutely loved how they came out. I've worn these pads plenty of times in the BHL skates, the SMW skates, and everywhere else I've needed to play a high level of hockey, because I think that these pads perform exactly where I need them to be. So in terms of why I've picked that bronze Axis set over top of the Bauer set, it really comes down to some fine details. I think that the bronze set actually just looks a little bit better. I love the solid colors, but I think the bronze goes extremely well with everything. I did pick them up a little bit more recently, so maybe that's why I didn't get a chance to wear them in some of those older skates I was talking about. But in terms of the performance, I find that they both seal very well. I like the one-piece knee designs, although the Bauer's knee block is by far a lot stiffer than the Axis one, but that's because the Axis doesn't actually integrate into the core of the pad like the Bauer does. But I found that the Bauer does have a little bit more of a booming rebound, specifically the blocker. But in terms of the Axis too, things dry a lot better. They dry a lot faster. I do like the stock glove a little bit more than the Ultrasonic. So I think that's kind of why I like that 580 style. But in a separate video, I will be talking about the Hyperlite2 Glove that I have been wearing with the Ultrasonic set, but you're gonna have to wait a few weeks for that one. I hope I was able to answer some of the questions about the Bauer Ultrasonic line, although it is about 3 years old at this point, which seems very old compared to what Bauer is coming out with in the next few months, even years. But I just want to talk about that because it is still extremely popular amongst the pros, and it's something that I look forward. It's something that I look for when I'm watching NHL games to see what the goalies are wearing, and those little hits across the back of the pads, glove, and blocker are things that I look for, and hopefully you can look for those things now as well too. Hopefully I've educated you on being able to look past the graphic that you see on the pads and look towards the core and the strapping of what these goalies are wearing, and I'll really tell you what model they are wearing. Hell, you'd even be surprised how many guys are still wearing 2S Pro gloves, but that's another story for another day. My name is Chris Dudo, and I'm the Goalie Gear Snob. Thanks for watching this video. I'd really appreciate it if you liked, commented, and subscribed, and also rang that cute little Liberty Bell for some notifications about what I upload to my channel. Please check me out on some of my other social outlets. Are going to be linked down below.